We'll get started in just a few minutes. We have some people still trying to find the Hunter Welcome Center. They're on campus, that's the good part, and they're trying to find where we're at. So we'll give them about another 5 to 7 minutes, and then we'll get started because we're absolutely going to honor your time. So, shortly.
Police Department. So on behalf of the university and on behalf of the University Police Department, welcome to our campus and thank you for attending this important event here. I can't believe the turnout. This is fantastic. We've got a lot of folks here. Also, I think covering a live stream through our local media, so folks are watching from home as well. The crowd size generated 2 or 3 venue changes, so we were we were proud to step up and offer the Hunter Welcome Center as an option so that we could get as many people in here as we can. We're looking at approximately 600 people. The truth is, we tricked you all. We're really here to talk about car burglaries. And this is the only way that we can get everyone to come in and pay attention. So, seriously, this is a great problem to have. Many communities don't have this problem because they don't have as engaging of a community and certainly not as responsive as a police department in the Abilene PD. So this is a great problem to have, and we were glad to be part of the solution tonight. Again, I want to welcome you here. I'm going to turn it over to Chief Standards here in a moment, and we'll start our program. I'd just like to remind everyone that we're thankful for this opportunity to have this venue here to talk about this important topic. I just want to remind everyone that we are here to talk about the law and the new law that's going to kick off in January. We're not here to debate opinions or perspectives. We're just here to educate people on the law. And during our question and answer period, I would hope that we could keep it brief and respect everyone's time. There'll be a lot of questions, and just be respectful of everyone's time, but also be respectful that we're not here to debate any issues. We're just simply here to educate. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Standards and their presentation.
Well, good evening. If you would join me in silencing your cell phones. Everybody, even me. My name is Stan Standards, and it's my absolute honor to serve as the police chief in the city of Abilene, a town that I have lived in since 1991. I call home. I love it. I came here because I'm a Dice transplant. I love it because when I see this crowd, I see community, and that's what this city speaks to me. You may be asking, well, why in the world did the police department originally schedule this at the law enforcement center and then move it to the civic center and then move it to ACU? Honestly, we had no idea what level of interest there would be. We figured maybe the hospitals, some businesses, perhaps the chamber, and perhaps some gun enthusiasts. We had no idea that we would exceed 600 RSVP'ds. I think that speaks very highly of our city. We're involved and we want to be educated. And that's exactly the purpose of tonight. I want to share our mission statement. We work together to build a community of the highest quality for present and future generations. Let's focus on that. We work together. Normally, we don't have enough time. Normally, I would ask you right now, how many sworn officers does your city employ? And somebody would answer probably 2,000. Somebody would answer 500. Somebody would answer 40. So I'd love to play poker with any of those answers. The answer is, as of tonight, we employ 193 peace officers. We provide services for about 120,000 of you. And oh, by the way, during the daytime, that increases by 22,120 people. So during the daytime, we're providing services for more than 140,000 citizens. Can 193 ever effectively provide services for that many people? The answer is yes. If we believe two things, we are better together. We truly are. Your police department will not be the least bit effective if we do not have the support of the community. I tell people all the time, you need two things to have a successful police department: mutual respect and trust. We have that in Abilene. And I'm so thankful to be your police chief and have those two things. The second thing we need you to believe is you're the first line of defense against crime. I'll say it again. You are the first line of defense against crime. The notion of a police officer on every corner is absurd. You know that. So what does that look like? It has nothing to do with gun considerations. It has everything to do with you perceiving that you could be a victim of a property crime, so you take measures to prevent it. How is that relevant? Well, you're a captive audience tonight. How could you expect me not to talk about crime? In 2014, we had an 18% increase in violent crime. I had multiple city councilmen up here. None of us are okay with it. 18% increase in violent crime in 1 year. Almost 13% increase in property crime. You know what's the bad news about 2015? It's even higher. We will finish the year with probably about, only good news is I thought it was 7%. It's actually going to be about 4% increase above and beyond 2014. We're going in the wrong direction. So I'm very thankful tonight that we have more than 600 interested citizens who are willing to collaborate with their police department on a very important issue. But here's two more foundational issues. We're better together, and you're the first line of defense against crime. So it is in that vein that police administration came forward and said, we probably need to be proactive about educating our community about the law changes that will take effect January 1 and then August 2016. Because here's the reality. The laws are confusing. Chief Perry will do an excellent job of articulating just how confusing they are. You think you're confused? We're confused. So, we're going to concede from the onset. We may not have all the answers. In fact, we will submit this proposal. All the answers don't even exist yet. Some things will have to be settled through court action, what we call case law. So there's going to be some issues that are debated tonight where we can't give you a definitive answer because it will have to be debated in the courtroom, thus establishing case law. What we will do is we will give you a very good, in-depth perspective. And when I say we, it won't be me. It's going to be Assistant Chief Mike Perry. Mike Perry has been with the department since 1991. He is currently serving as the Assistant Chief over the Uniformed Services Bureau. So basically anything that wears a blue suit, to include your patrol division, your traffic division, your K-9, your SWAT, your bomb squad, Mike oversees all that. Also with you tonight is Assistant Chief Doug Grant. Doug oversees all of investigations, to include communications and your training division. And we also have Sergeant Lynn Beard in the room somewhere. All of you all seen him because he's the face of APD, along with Rick Tomlin, our Public Information Coordinator. Rick is much more handsome than Lynn, but we had to choose who we had to choose. So, let's talk about how we're going to do this. Tonight is going to be a presentation. It's honestly going to be pretty much a one-sided giving of information. As Chief Ellison articulated, it's not really designed to be an exchange of ideas, because that's already occurred in your state legislature. They've already heard all of the contrasting ideas, the pros and the cons. They've weighed them carefully. And your state legislators have already decided what will be law. We're here simply to communicate what those law changes are for your benefit, and I'm going to be honest with you, for our benefit. What I don't want to happen is on January 1, we get flooded with calls about confused citizens because they see people walking around openly carrying firearms. After tonight, you won't be confused. You will be an educated citizenry, which is exactly what we're after. So, let me brag about the venue. Why did we choose the Hunter Welcome Center? Some people suggested, well, it's because you knew that you could get us in here and you couldn't legally carry a firearm in here. I wish I had been that smart, and I thought I had. I wish that had been the case. I'm not. Besides, if you look around, I think you're probably very safe. We're here. This is a safe learning environment. But I didn't mention the most important aspect. It was free. I don't have a huge budget. It was free. So that doesn't speak volumes about Councilman Anthony Williams, about President Phil Schubert, about Chief of Police Jimmy Ellison. I don't know what does. That's the value of relationship. And I hope tonight when we leave, we have better relationship. Because again, we need mutual respect and trust if we're going to be successful. So, let me brag about the ACU Police Department, because a lot of people don't even know they have their own existing police department, but they employ 14 sworn peace officers. They're on the same radio network as us. They handle calls with us. They're a force multiplier. So when we called Chief Ellison, he didn't have to hesitate. He made some phone calls because he recognizes the gravity of what we're doing tonight, but the answer was yes, and there won't be a charge to our citizens. I think that's pretty awesome. So, enough about that. As it relates to the presentation, I'm I'm going to guess that Chief Perry will finish in about 35, 40 minutes, give or take. So it's not that long. And then Sergeant Beard, raise your hand, he and I will be your moderators. If you have a specific question, not an opinion, opinions already have been vetted in Austin. If you have a specific question, we're going to ask you to come out into this main aisle and this main aisle. And we put duct tape there. Go ahead and get in a line, and then Sergeant Beard and I will go ahead and facilitate the questions that Chief Perry will attempt to answer. If they're campus specific, Chief Ellison will attempt to answer. So, I think it's going to be incredibly productive. At some point, I'm going to kind of sense that we probably need to call it. If we're in here 2 hours, we're not too long. Agreed? Yes. Yes. We're not pastors. We're not going to keep you beyond that. So, I will respectfully ask, let's hold all questions until the end of Chief Perry's presentation, and then Sergeant Beard and I will cue the time for questions. Because if we take time to answer individual questions during the presentation, chances are we will have answered your question on slide 10. So hang with us. No further ado, Chief Perry.
Thank you, Chief. As the Chief alluded, my name is Mike Perry. I started at the police department in 1991. Lifelong resident of Abilene. My family's roots go back to 1926 in Abilene, Texas, so we've been here a while. Kind of disclaimer to start. What we're going to talk about is not legal advice. I'm not an attorney. We go to the department sometimes. I try to act like an attorney, but I'm not an attorney. Haven't gone to law school. I did graduate from Memphis University. Great school, by the way, great facility. This is new legislation. And anytime you have new legislation, some things are just not addressed. There are going to be some gray areas in the law. Case law will ultimately have to solve some of these questions that we may not have answers to tonight. Also, the next time around, every 2 years, they're going to come up with new legislation. Hopefully they'll fix some of these things. They're not really clear right now. I mean, I've been spending the last multiple days trying to digest this stuff. It is confusing. So we need to acknowledge, y'all, that there is some confusion in some of the law because it's just not crystal clear. We'll do our best to answer all questions for you tonight, but the reality is we're not able to answer. What we will do is try to find an answer and publish that answer to the public, because y'all have the right to know what the investigation is. We're going to talk about this thing called the right to bear arms. We've read that a couple of places somewhere. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what does happen January 1st of next year. We're going to talk about your rights to carry, when and where. We're going to talk about licensed carry and non-licensed carry. We're going to talk about owners, and hopefully we have a lot of business owners in here that have questions about what can I exclude, what can I not do? How do I do these things? We're going to talk about the proper signage. You see some of those down below me. We're going to talk about the criminal violations, and we're going to talk about how are our officers going to interact with the department. Because we need to know that ahead of time. And then we'll try to answer questions. So, the foundation of where we got to this point in time is the Constitution of the United States of America, the Second Amendment, which says a well-regulated militia, being necessary to carry a free state, the right of people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. We've all heard that a few times, right? Did you know that there's a corresponding state constitutional law? And it's in there, and it talks about the same things, the right to keep and bear arms. It talks about the legislature having the power to regulate that law. And so we already have some regulation mentioned in some of the laws we're dealing with. So once you have the foundation of law, you have some building of the law. We know that the First Amendment talks about free speech in the Constitution. We also know through case law that right is not unlimited. There's famous discussions about the yelling of fire in a crowded theater, the mayhem that can cause. And so the courts have said that's not free speech. So there are some limitations even in the First Amendment. We've regulated arms over the years. You just can't, have any weapon you want. You can't just open up a machine without certain permits. There's ways to do it. Or silencers, or even bazooka. There's problems there. You just can't have any. So there is some regulation. We'll acknowledge that. The manner of carry has been regulated. We'll acknowledge that as well. And regulations sometimes include licensing. District of Columbia versus Heller. Y'all heard about this case? It's an extremely important case involving the right to bear arms. What it basically said is the right to bear arms is a personal right. And that's important to y'all that want to be able to carry a firearm. The right's not unlimited. That's also something that's in the case, and it's not just however you want to carry it. So there are some limitations, but it is a personal right. Very important decision out of the District of Columbia versus Heller case in the Supreme Court. So let's digress for a second. Let's just talk about Texas law, because I'm somewhat familiar with Texas law. This green book I have is 2,600 pages of invigorating reading. These are laws in Texas. Every new police officer in the city of Abilene gets one of these books. And oh, by the way, they change them every 2 years. So we buy a new book, different type of book every 2 years. This is the most recent version. 2,600 pages, small font, and very difficult to read. And oh, by the way, it's abridged. It doesn't have all the laws in it. So, House Bill 910, which was the law that actually deals with this open carry thing, 42 pages long. The old CLHL handbook that we used to have if you went through a CHO class, 72 pages long. So there's all this information you have to digest if you want to understand these laws. So let's talk about laws in Texas. Let's just use an example of a really easy law to understand. Let's look at like this vicious dog and how do we tether this vicious dog, okay? So, every law in Texas has definitions, and we kind of understand these. Collar makes sense, owner makes sense, properly fitted makes sense. Wait a second, properly fitted. Measure the circumference of a dog's neck plus at least 1 inch. Okay, let's think. The circumference, that's pi, no, it's not pi. Diameter, no, it's 3.1415976, no, wait, that's not it. Okay, it's the length around the neck, I got it. Add an inch, and that's your collar, right? So, okay, I'm good with that now. So restraint, rope, tether, leash, okay, I'm good with that. So now we got the definitions. Let's see what the violation is. Can't leave it outside unreasonably. Okay, I'm good with that. Okay, we got hours here. It's 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. We got some feet restrictions here, 500 feet of a school. Extreme weather, we're talking about the actual or effective outdoor temperatures below 32. Actual or effective outdoor temperature. Is that wind chill? What are we talking about? Y'all know what we're talking about? We got pinch type, prong type, choke type that's not properly fitted. Okay, I'm good with that. Is the length shorter than the greater of? Wait. Shorter than the greater of 5 times the length of the dog. Got shorter length 5. As measured from the tip of the dog's nose to the base of the tail. 5 times. What if the dog's tail is cropped? Do you count the part that's missing? Okay, we got that. All right, unsafe conditions. Okay, so now we got the violation, so now we're going to have the penalty, right? Oh, wait, we got exceptions. We got the exceptions to the leash law. Restraint, line, pulley, dog restraint, engage, activity training, you're herding cattle, you're sheep herding, your livestock. Herding cattle? Sheep? Okay. A lot of stuff here. So can we please get to the punishment? Oh, wait. The punishment's not simple either. You got knowingly, intelligently, knowingly violates. Okay, so you got culpable mental states. You've got statement signed by the officer. Offense, if it's described, 24 hours in length. My whole point of talking about this law is this is a simple law. This is how you tether your dog. Is it easy? Is it easy to understand? No, it's not easy. It's not simple law. And that's how a lot of these laws are written. And I hate to tell you folks, some of this handgun licensing law has some of this stuff in it that makes it confusing sometimes. So we tried to dumb it down for simple people like myself. So we had a friend that's an attorney in San Antonio or San Angelo that came up with this chart. So this is all y'all need. Now that we got this chart up on the board, y'all can go home. Okay? This is the gun law chart as it stands January 1st of 2016. And you can't see, and that's a little bit that's intentional, but we got all the places over here. Then we got carry a gun without a license, carry, it's all the different things that can happen. So it looks pretty simple, right? I mean, you got a matrix. You can look at, okay, I'm here, I can do this, I got this. Life is good. Here's a problem. We got 8 ifs in there, okay? 8 ifs are tolerable. We can do with 8 ifs. We got 36 unlesses. So you got a whole bunch of clauses, 36 unlesses on that page. We got 42 yeses. Yeses are good. And we got 97 no's, okay? So even this simple matrix is complicated. Just want to point that out. So let's talk about the laws. What laws are we dealing with when we're talking about open carry and concealed carry? Well, you can see here's a page of laws we're dealing with. Oh wait, here's a page of laws we're dealing with, and here's a page of laws that we're dealing with. All these laws have some connection to the carrying of a firearm. So look up each one and memorize them, because we now need to know the law. There's other laws that are not even on those 3 pages. In addition to that, there's federal law that we haven't even touched on, and there's case law, which also can have the effect of real law. So there's a lot of issues with what's going on. So let's even simple it down even more for me. What happens January 1st, 2016? January 1st, 2016, the distinction between concealed and open carry is just gone. You can now carry a firearm. There is no distinction between the two if you have a handgun license. That's the biggest gist of what's changing. A lot of what they did through the laws, they just took out the concealed part. They literally took a line and drew through it. And that's pretty easy to understand. They made these things called 30-6 and 30-7. Those are penal code violations. 30-6 we're used to. We've seen that before. The 30-6 signs. Most of y'all should know what those are. We now have a 30-7 sign. And the 30-7 sign deals with open carry. It's almost the same effect the 30-6 sign had, except for 30-7 is open carry. Open carry requires a belt or shoulder holster. We'll talk about that here in just a second. There's no new training required for a current CHL holder. Your CHL license, January 1st, becomes a handgun license. No more training required. If you don't have a handgun license January 1st, part of your new training and the new curriculum will also include handgun retention, because you're presumably also open carrying. It makes sense. Without a license, the carrying openly of a handgun is still illegal in Texas. Okay? I'll say it again. Carrying a handgun in a public place without a license in Texas and other places, but that's primarily it, is still illegal. This is not constitutional carry. I know lots of people want constitutional carry, but this is not. This is still restricted carry, so y'all need to remember that too. So all the people out there that don't have a CHL or January 1st to HL, you can't just put a gun on and go walk around, because we're worried about that, because we don't want people to violate the law. We want people to be informed. So let's talk about holsters. Can anybody see that holster up on my top right, my right up here? That's a flip-flop. Now the question becomes, this is a legitimate question. If I'm a police officer now and I see a guy walking around with a flip-flop and a gun stuffed in it, is that a holster? Well, guess what? The legislature did not define a holster. So I could make an argument, and this will become case law, that's a holster. The other thing they did in the law that's kind of interesting is they didn't say whether or not the holster has to be attached to your body. So if you're openly carrying and you've got the holster in your hand with the gun in it, are you still in compliance with state law? Yeah, maybe until a case law or something else says otherwise. What if you got it stuffed down in your Adidas sneaker? You know, is that a holster? Like new law, there's some things we're going to have to walk through. But the bottom line is there is no definition of holster, and there is no specific legal requirement to carry it on your person. It just has to be in the holster. So we'll have to walk through that case law. This is the only opinion that I'm going to give you all tonight about anything we're talking about. I got lots of opinions, but they're my personal opinion, not the opinion of the department. They're mine. This is the one opinion we're going to share with you, and that's on retention holsters. If you look around, you see these uniformed officers, almost every one of them, even and myself included, have what's called a level 3 retention holster. That's intentional because we occasionally lose our guns in fights with people when we get into a physical altercation with somebody. There's some statistics out there that up to 10% of officers are actually killed with their own handguns on the streets. So you want to make sure that if someone wants to take this away from me, there's going to have to be some effort involved. They're going to have to know some tricks to get it open. What we're telling our citizenry is if you're going to carry a handgun in a holster, we're recommending you carry a level 2, which means it has some sort of device other than friction to keep it on your person or in your holster. That's just our advice. That's what we're sticking with. Level 3 is okay. If you learn how to draw a level 3 holster, that's okay too. All of our officers carry a level 3 on duty. They all know how to draw in a rapid way. It's not a problem. So for licensed carrier opinions, you carry a minimum level 2. Through with opinions. So let's talk about some laws. Does everybody know what a firearm is? You would think you would know what a firearm is. It's not that hard to figure out, right? So basically something that has this exploding gas, push a projectile out, that's there. But you know if you have an 1899 Curio or real pistol, it's not a firearm by definition. As long as the Curio, the one that's actually a replica, doesn't fire center fire, rimfire, and from ammunition. So it's not as easy to know exactly what a revolver is, or a firearm is, if you don't know. A handgun's one that's designed to be fired with one hand. That actually kind of makes sense. That's one of the easier laws to grasp. I got that one. That's easy. Premises. This is a fun one. What is a premise? Well, according to the law, a premise means the building or a portion of the building. Let's think about that. It's a building or it's a portion of the building. Well, which is it? Is it the building? Is it the portion of the building? It doesn't say. We'll have to work through that one. Term does not include a private drive, street, sidewalk, walkway, park lot. The other areas other than the building and the immediate current lease around the building. Just our portion of building. That's what that says about premise. So here's some offenses that you may be familiar with. This is 4201, disorderly conduct statute. There's 3 of them that deal with firearms. The first one is discharge firearm in public place other than a public road or sports shooting range. Displays a firearm or other weapon in a public place in a manner calculated to cause alarm. Or discharge a firearm on or across a public roadway. That's where you get disorderly conduct involving a firearm. Let's talk about Penal Code 30-6. Again, most of y'all have been CHL holders, know what this is. This is a sign that says you cannot... Okay, make sure that doesn't disappear on me. That you cannot enter a property after giving proper notice, a place of business or something similar like that, that you've been given notice that the concealed carry of a weapon is no longer valid, or you cannot do it. You're giving notice it's trespass if you go through. Notice can be a sign. I've got some signs down here you can look at, or it can also be verbal. You can go up and tell someone you're not welcome in my establishment with that firearm. And that's sufficient notice to tell. There is no verbiage required other than communicating they're not welcome in the property. They changed the law where if you miss the sign and you go into the property in violation of a 30-6 sign, it's just a Class C misdemeanor. It's a ticket, just like you get if you ran a red light or didn't use your turn signal, something like that. If you are told after that to leave and you refuse to leave, then it's a Class A misdemeanor. So they've cleaned up some things there. 30-7 is almost identical to 30-6 except for it deals with carrying a handgun in the open. So basically a business could have a 30-6 sign and only allow people to carry openly, or they have a 30-7 sign and only allow people to carry concealed. That's the way that works. Same violations. You give notice verbally. Also the signs down here. 30-6, 30-7, and I'll talk about this other sign on your right, my left. Let's talk about the required signage. It requires separate notice. So again, if you want to exclude all people from carrying firearms under a handgun license, you have to have a 30-6 sign and a 30-7 sign. You have to have both of those things. It has to have the proper language. It has to be in English and Spanish. These signs down here, I believe, are proper. Contrasting colors, at least 1 inch in height, must be displayed in a conspicuous manner. Must be clearly displayed in a conspicuous manner. Clearly visible to public. 30-7 must be displayed at each entrance to the property. This is a quirk in the law. 30-6 has to be visible to everybody in a conspicuous manner. 30-7 has to be at each entrance. So, little difference in the law.
Mike, let me offer one thought on that. He mentioned just a minute ago, this is important because I know we have some churches and we were intentional about recruiting churches to attend. Many of your churches have adopted the stance that we're okay with concealed carry. We're not comfortable with open carry. And that's the decision the church has to make. So what Chief Perry said was really a good teaching point. You can authorize concealed carry in a facility and not authorize open carry. You just have to put the 30-7 signs that he's going to show you. Or you can do flip-flop with that. So that's a real key teaching point if you own a business or maybe a nonprofit or even a church. Thanks, Mike.
Sure. So this is what the language actually has to say. The language is on the boards down here. You can read that language, but there is a specific language that has to be on the sign. If the language is not specific to the statute, that it's not a 51% sign, that's a sign you want to take note of. And that's all that's required. It's not any of these other signs down here. If it says 51%, you can't go in those places. So let's talk about the unlicensed possession of a handgun. This changed several years ago. You are permitted as a citizen to have a concealed handgun in your vehicle or on your boat. They talk about a watercraft. They're talking about a boat. They use these big words. They're talking about a boat. If it's under your control, the vehicle's under your control. The key here is it has to be concealed. Now the question becomes, well, I'm a handgun license holder. Can I carry the gun openly in my vehicle? The answer is yes, if you have a flip-flop. I mean, a holster. That's what I mean. What it says in the law is if you carry the weapon open in your vehicle and you're a handgun license holder, you have to have it in the holster. That's what it says. It doesn't say whether it has to be on the seat, whatever. It just says you have to have it in the holster. Otherwise, if you don't have a handgun license, you must keep that weapon concealed. You do have the right to go to and from your vehicle directly to transport that weapon. That's why I was talking about the apartment complexes where you have a hard time limiting people doing that. There's some caveats to that. You can't be engaged in any criminal activity other than Class C traffic law. Are there Class C violations that aren't traffic law? You betcha. Real common one is open container law. That's not a traffic law. That's a penal law. And so if you have an open container in your vehicle and you have a concealed handgun, you could be charged with a handgun violation if you're not a CHL holder, or excuse me, a handgun license holder. If I say that, please forgive me. I'm just so used to the verbiage concealed handgun. You are prohibited from owning a firearm to begin with, possessing one, or you're a member of a criminal street gang. And I hope we don't have a whole lot of members of a criminal street gang, but there is a legal definition in a database. You should know if you're a member of a criminal street gang. So if you are, don't carry a gun in your car concealed.
So, Mike, I got a question for you. I'm a business owner, I'm a small business owner, and I'm totally against firearms. And I tell my employees, thou shalt not carry your firearm to my place of employment where I employ you, and that includes my parking lot. Don't do it. Can they?
No. The law is specific on the concealed handgun and the open handgun carry that you can carry it in your vehicle to the parking lot of the business. They cannot restrict that. They absolutely can restrict you carrying it into the business. If they don't give you authority to do it, you can't do it. They have a right to exclude you from it. And what's the penalty? Well, you don't have a job tomorrow, and that's what it comes down to. I mean, think about it. If you don't do what your boss says, that's probably not a good thing. So they do have a right to exclude folks from carrying the weapons into the business. Some businesses will and some businesses won't. That's what's going to come down to. That's an individual business owner's decision. So briefly about public gun carry, long gun carry. There is no license required to carry a long gun in the state of Texas. It's always been that way. You remember growing up, there's people always carried the rifle and the shotgun on the back of their pickup truck window. That was pretty common. Burglaries have gone up in Abilene, so I hear, Chief, so probably that's not a great idea, at least not to leave it there overnight. Don't do that. Prohibited places still could apply, carrying a long gun. So if you couldn't carry a long gun in before, you still can't do it now, and I'll talk about that here in a second. General fire provisions apply to private property. So again, a no firearms allowed sign may be sufficient notice for a long gun. Now, it's going to depend on the jurisdiction you're in. I don't anticipate that if we got a call that someone's carrying a rifle inside a business and there's been no notice given to them verbally, and all they had was this little no gun sign inside, that we're going to go in there and arrest them. We'll probably go in there and say, hey, the owner doesn't want you here with a gun, can you please take it out your car or leave? That's what's going to probably happen. Okay? But is that notice no firearms allowed? Yeah, it might be. It might be as far as just giving you notice. I again recommend, if you see a sign like that, why do you want to challenge it? If you know that it meets the criteria for a long gun, it does. For a concealed handgun or an open carried handgun, it does not.
So, Mike, let me jump on my soapbox. I'm going to leave it in my car. Well, 2 years ago, we were averaging 60 car burglaries a month. We're at 120, folks. We're at 120 cars entered. And guess what? About 80% of them are unlocked. Every week, we have firearms stolen in Abilene. Every week. We must change behavior because we're the first line of defense against crime. I think you've heard that before.
The statute that talks about weapons prohibited, that has not changed. If you as a CHL holder could not take your gun to a certain location because it's a place that's prohibited, that is still a prohibited place. Let me be clear, it's still a prohibited place January 1st. And those are the places we probably all know. These are all firearms. We're talking about all firearms. There's a few vague exceptions, and we can get those if we want to, but this is general law here. Educational institution without written permission or with activities going on, high school, college, professional sporting event, a polling place with polling signs posted. Here's a problem right here with the law that we can already see coming. A polling place. Polling places on polling days are pretty easy, right? Where do they put polling places for early voting? Kmart, Walmart, Hastings, City Hall. That is a prohibited place while the polling's going on. Now the question becomes, we're back to building or part of a building. It's not really good case law out there yet on it. I think the way it's eventually going to be interpreted, and this is not set yet, folks, is if you can't wear an election button or electioneer in that area, meaning 100 feet from the actual polling place, you probably can't be in that area with a firearm. That's what it comes down to. But here's my concern, and again, I don't think this is going to be a big issue, But if you see a polling place sign, the sign that's usually set about 100 feet from the actual polling place, and you go by it thinking, I haven't seen a 30-6 or 30-7 sign, folks, you're in violation of state law. Because you're carrying a firearm in a polling place, and there is no requirement for a 30-6, 30-7 sign. It's still a prohibited location. So just be cautious of that. That's one of these areas which is kind of concerning. Court or court offices without authorization. This is back to that mixed building thing, what I'm talking about. Let's use City Hall for an example. If you've got a City Hall that has a municipal court over here, courtroom, but it also shares a building with a whole bunch of other municipal offices, is the whole thing protected, or is it just the court? That decision hasn't been made yet. Now, we think it's leaning one way or the other, but the bottom line is it hasn't been made yet. We need a ruling from the Attorney General's office pretty soon to make that decision. They may decide that it's just this one area of the building. Now, we met with a bunch of small city chiefs the other day, and here's the problem. What if you have one of these really small cities where the courtroom is this desk, and the court administrator is this desk, and then the mayor's desk is right here? I mean, they're literally all together. That's probably a place where you're not be able to carry a weapon. Just a guess, but they're going to have to probably have signage posted at those places. I would hope they would. It's a prohibited place, though, remember, so we've got to be careful there, because those do not require 30-6, 30-7 signs. Correctional facilities. I can't carry a firearm in a correctional facility. So those are pretty standard, too. And I know not to have lock boxes as you walk in. Secure areas of an airport. This is interesting. State law has changed about secure areas of an airport. If you have a concealed handgun, not an open carried handgun, because you could kind of notice that's on you. But if you have a concealed handgun, you go through the security area and they say, oh, hey, you got a gun in your bag, you get a mulligan under state law. Okay? Excuse me. They tell you that you can go back, take your gun back outside. There is no violation of law if you leave when told to leave. If you decide not to leave, there's a problem, but that's a whole other issue. But you get a mulligan, basically. Now, here's the problem with that. Did the state law address federal law? No. Is there a federal law violation for trying to carry a weapon through a secure portion of the airport? Absolutely. It's civil only, but they can fine you. So just keep that in mind. I mean, the good rule of thumb is if you've got a firearm, don't try to check it through to the plane. Or go onto the plane with it. That's just a good rule of thumb. Racetracks, we don't have racetracks in Abilene, but if you go to a racetrack, that's a place where weapons are prohibited. While intoxicated, there's a law specific to if you're a license holder and you're intoxicated, you're in violation of the law. Now, someone would say, well, what if I'm not a license holder and I got that concealed weapon or the long gun and I'm drunk? Public intoxication would probably be applicable in that case. So you still may have a violation, of course. 51% location, we saw the red sign, we were talking about that. And this also doesn't happen here, at least happen yet, I don't think. 1,000 feet of an execution, day of execution. That's another prohibited place. A lot of these things do not require signage. I recommend that you look at prohibited places and be intimately familiar with them. That's where you get yourself in a bind if you don't see the signs. These signs are easy to avoid. But the places where they don't have to have signs could be the problem. 30-6, 30-7 signs. If you want to prohibit people from going to these places, you've got to have a sign or give verbal notice or written notice to a person. You can give them out, I think it's a way to give them a card too once they enter, but still notice once they've entered. Well, on the outside, most places are probably use these signs. And that's private businesses open to the public. Governmental meetings can choose to do that as well. Hospitals and nursing homes and places of worship. And as the chief said, if you're a place of worship and you're okay with concealed carry but you're not okay with open carry, put up a 30-7 sign appropriately on all your outside exits. And that would take care of our entrance and exits. That would take care of that.
So Mike, I need to understand that I'm a small business owner and I can't afford these $100 signs at every one of my entrances. You're telling me that I don't have to purchase the signs, but I can give verbal notice, and that's sufficient pursuant to the law.
Absolutely. You can tell them once they come in, hey, listen, we don't like open firearms in here, please take that outside. And they're asking you to leave is what they're doing. You need to comply. Because there's all sorts of issues. If you're given notice and you don't leave, there's problems. And that's what we're trying to avoid. There's also a stipulation to give them a card, but still, it's giving them a notice. You're telling them, I don't want you in my business. And that's your right as a business owner if you think about it. You may agree or disagree with them, but that's their right. That's their business. So they have a right to control that. Campus carry. And Chief Ellison's here. He knows a lot more about this than I do because I don't have to deal with this a whole lot out here. But that doesn't start till August 1st, folks. So keep that in mind. Don't think that you can carry a gun on campus January 1st. You cannot. Okay? The other thing to keep in mind is when we finally get around to August 1st, you can't openly carry a handgun. It has to be concealed. The law is different for a campus. So keep that in mind as well. Public institutions, state schools, state colleges, can only carve out very small specific places where they can post a 30.6 and 30.7 signs where they can prohibit people carrying firearms. There's all sorts of process for them to do that, but as a general rule, most of the campus should be open to a handgun license holder. And if you go to a place which you're not allowed to carry, you should see a 30.6 or 30.7 sign. That's the way it's going to work. Private institutions, because they're private, can do the same thing. They can have little sections they choose for whatever reason they have to justify. They can't carry here, or they can opt out completely. And again, you're going to have signage saying we've opted out by having 30.6, 30.7 signs. And that's unique to private institutions. Junior colleges or community college, 2-year colleges, people call them, for whatever reason, this is just kind of how we write laws sometimes, don't start until 2017. Don't know why, no one's told me, but they wrote the law that way, so that's what we're going to interpret it. So here's an important part of tonight's discussion. How do we expect our officers to interact with you, the public, carrying firearms? Well, here's what we're going to say. Our officers are going to be instructed. Persons lawfully carrying firearms under Texas law should not be unnecessarily hindered in the exercise of that privilege. Period. Any detention of a person for carrying a handgun shall be in accordance with Texas Penal Code 4602 UCW, unlawful carrying of a weapon. And this is all based on law. Disarming a person lawfully carrying firearms should only occur consistent with state law where an officer reasonably believes it's necessary for protection of the license holder, the officer, or the individual. Okay? License holders may be required to disarm entering a secure area of the law enforcement center. The sign over here on your far right, my left, is called a 411 sign. And what it says is you're entering a secure area of the law enforcement center, and we may ask you to disarm if you enter that area. We'll have a lockbox for you. Put your gun up. When you leave, you can take it with you. The law requires us to have that sign, and we have that legal authority through statute to go ahead and ask you to take the firearm off as you come into the secure area of the law enforcement center. As to the law enforcement portion that's open to the public, it's just going to be like any other public place that you can carry your firearm if you have the proper license.
So Mike, did I just hear you tell us that your officers are not going to respond when I call 911 to report a suspicious man with a firearm at a suspicious location near a school? Is that what you said?
It's not what I said, Chief.
All right, what did you say?
We're not going to go looking for people opening and carrying handguns. We're not going to drive around looking for someone carrying an open handgun and go up there and try to mess with them. If we get a call for service, and if you look at the totality of the circumstances, if you look at all the circumstances going on, there's something suspicious going on, we're going to contact you. That's what we do for a living. We respond to suspicious circumstances, suspicious places. So, yes, we're going to answer calls for service. And we're going to evaluate that call for service based on what we got on the call and what we find when we get there. And if push comes to shove and we do have to ask for a license, we're going to ask for a license. But we're going to be doing so probably under some other criminal statute or under 4602, which is UCW. They did not take UCW out of the statute. UCW says it's unlawful to carry a firearm on your person. It's an exception to that law if you have a handgun license. So again, that's not going to be our intent, to go around just looking for people to mess with. No.
So when the officer engages that person, and let's say he has an open carry, and he has a license, but he refuses it to give to the officer, because it's his right to carry that firearm, is there going to be a problem?
There's probably going to be a problem. Because, again, and folks, I may be candid, this is the gray area of the law here. They didn't clarify this, and I'll show you another statute that's in here that's still in the law. They didn't clarify 4602. There are a lot of departments that say, if I see a handgun on a person, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to ask them for the ID. Some departments are going to do that, okay? They are. They're going to say it's within their rights. It very well may be. Until case law solves this, guys, it's gray. If we have cause to contact you and investigate suspicious circumstance, we ask you for your concealed or your handgun license, and you're open carrying, show the license. It's going to make the detention much quicker. And it's not a huge intrusion into the contact. But I'm telling you again, we're not just going to go looking for conflict. That's not going to be our goal. We are very supportive of folks that they're lawfully carrying firearms. Period. That's your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Here's this law that I'm talking about. They didn't take this law out. It says if a license holder is carrying a handgun on or about the license holder's person when magistrate or peace officer demands the license holder display identification, the license holder shall display the license and the driver's license. So what it says in the law? Still there. There's a lot of discussion about it, but the law is still there. This is the law that talks about being able to disarm a person. And this is kind of similar to what I told you what officers are being told. It says that a peace officer acting in the lawful discharge of his official duties may disarm a license holder at any time the officer reasonably believes, that's the key word, reasonable. A lot of stuff we do has to do with reasonableness. Reasonably believes it's necessary protection of the license holder, officer, and another individual. The peace officer shall return the handgun to the license holder before discharging the license holder from the scene if the officer determines the license holder is not a threat to the officer, license holder, or another individual, and if the license holder has not violated any provision of this subchapter or committed any other violation that results in the arrest of the license holder. So that's the law they wrote in as far as being able to disarm somebody. And that's it. That's the majority portion of my presentation. We're going to entertain questions. I don't know all the answers, folks. I've tried to find as much as I can. I've got some people around the room that may help me on some of these answers. Chief Ellison with the campus carry, Officer of our Police Department also is a CHL instructor, now a handgun license instructor. He made some nuances of the law. Here's my promise to you. If we don't know the answer, we'll do everything in our power to get you an answer, and we'll post it where you can see it publicly.
So, Chief Perry, I live in Oklahoma. I don't know why I would, but I live in Oklahoma. I don't know your laws in Texas. You people are gun nuts, and I travel into Texas. Are you going to honor my concealed handgun or open carry license from Oklahoma?
You know, this is one of those things they didn't really talk about openly, or that's kind of a neat word, openly here. But the general rule of thought is if you have a reciprocal license in another state and you come to Texas, you will then entertain the same rights as a person who holds a handgun license in Texas. Whether or not that state allows open carry or not, the fact that you have a license to carry in that state, concealed or open or both, gives you the right to carry in the state of Texas. There's lots of reciprocity. Now, here's the catch, though. Just because you can openly carry or concealed carry in Texas, and there's some level of reciprocity somewhere else, be very careful that you get on a bona fide website. Don't go to just any website. Go to their state website or something. Because I see, in researching this presentation tonight, I saw information in a lot of the websites that was just flat wrong.
The DPS website for the state of Texas has a list of all the reciprocal states that they're.
But some of them are full reciprocity, and some of them are partial, and some of them are just one way. So you need to be very careful. It does. It has a full map of the U.S. You can click on it, talks about it. But it doesn't hurt to look it up. It does not hurt to look it up.
All right, so if you have a question, let's get you to either come over here or come see Sergeant Beard. I don't know why you want to. Come on over to my side. All right, Lynn, I'm going to go first. Councilman Crowder.
Okay, citizen calls in, 911, what's your emergency? Hey, there's a guy carrying a gun at 7-Eleven at Oldham Lane, Luke 322. You need to get some police officers over there. How does that call proceed?
Early on, to be candid with you, we'll probably answer those calls for service. We're going to have to work through this. This is going to be a learning curve for us and for the public. There's a lot of states that have open carry now. Most states have open carry that we haven't had for whatever it was, a long time ago, before I was born. And it's not a big issue for them anymore. But I think the transition period is going to generate a lot of calls for service, and we'll do our best to answer those calls. And then we will do our best to make good decisions when we get there. If someone's simply carrying a handgun and walking around and they're not causing a problem, there's no other suspicious circumstances, we'll probably be done with the call.
Go ahead, Lynn.
You're first.
Are we still going to be allowed to carry a weapon in our cars if the driver is not licensed?
Yes, sir. I mentioned that in my presentation. Texas still, some people refer to it as a castle doctrine, but basically it extends your home, your property, to your vehicle. The requirements in Texas are, and I talked about the gangs and those type of things and the Class C misdemeanors other than traffic violations. You can carry in your vehicle a handgun, loaded, unloaded, any way you want, any condition you want to carry it. The caveat has to be concealed if you do not have a handgun license. You can also carry that handgun directly to and from your residence if you're trying to transport it back and forth, because obviously leaving the car there may be a problem with it. So yes, you can carry a handgun in your firearm. That's been the law for several years here in Texas.
We're just not going to leave it in our cars unattended.
Or unlocked. Please, please.
We're 10
I'm not gonna endorse a particular vendor, but there's lots of sign shops here in Abilene. Look up signs, you'll find sign shops. It just depends on where there's lots of places that are selling them. If you go on the internet, there's some. I'd be very careful to make sure that the language on the signage is the same language as required, that the sign and the height and all that stuff. We're going to contract with a local vendor to purchase signs for the law enforcement center for these 411 signs. In fact, I've already got an order. I think some are already made. So I'm very hesitant to give an exact vendor. I would ask other business owners who they use and who they've been happy with, and that'd be the best way to go.
But I mean, as far as the requirements, they've got to be posted at each door, and they've got to say this.
30-6 signs must be posted where they're conspicuous. 30-7 signs have to be at every entrance.
She's asking, where can we go to find out where specifically if you post it? We're going to put everything on our webpage.
Yes. I'm sorry, Chief?
Talk about our webpage and what's going to be on there as early as Monday.
We're going to have this presentation, we're going to have this slideshow, I'm going to have the cheat sheet with all the no's, yeses, and maybes and all that stuff on there. That'll all be on there for you to look at.
As well as any resources for what you need to know as a business owner or a private citizen. Great question. Lynn.
Yes, sir. I got relocated here from San Antonio, and I go there once a month. Talking to the people there, a lot of the gun shops are now having concealed weapon holders that they clip onto your belt that they'll be carrying next to their open gun so that officers know that they're licensed. What do you suggest here in the spirit of mutual respect and trust that citizens that choose to open carry can do to make your job easier?
I would say that's not a bad idea. The problem is when you have something the size of a driver's license or or a handgun license, it may be very difficult to see that without actually looking at it because it'd be really easy to reproduce that. I mean, I could go get a photocopier and make one and change the picture out. So it's not a bad idea. I just know it's absolute. There may be times where we still need to physically see the license.
But she still gets an A+ because she lived in mutual respect and trust.
Yes, it's true.
I got two questions. I just want to clear up for the NFA community. Sorry to ask this. Suppressors in Texas are a legal accessory to your firearm. Is there any problem carrying a suppressor openly?
I'm not aware of any if you have the license from the federal government to carry it. David, do you agree with that?
You got the tax stamp, as long as you got the stamp.
Right.
As long as you have the tax stamp, you'll be good with that.
Yeah, I don't think that, and that's another, they may come back next year or 2 years from now and say, but you can't put this, that, or another. Right now, it's not clear. So I would say it's probably legal.
And then on the second question, again, dealing with NFA, I don't know, most officers should be familiar with the AK and AR type variant that are called pistols that often have a SIG stabilizing brace that make it look like a very short long rifle. Those are classified by BATFE as pistols. Are those okay to open carry?
David?
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that.
By the way, this is David Varner. He's an Abilene Police Officer. Absolutely they are.
My deal on, if we're talking about the ones that are defined by ATF as pistols, they're pistols. They are pistols that are designed that way, correct. If it's not homemade to be a pistol, it's going to be considered a pistol. We'll go by ATF. My understanding, our PD and the DA's office, we're going to go by ATF regulations on those. If they're a pistol, they're a pistol.
Wow, tough question.
Wow, I didn't have that other one.
Make it easy. As a small business owner, it's not my intention to prohibit anyone from open carrying in my business, but would it be legal for me to prohibit an individual based on circumstance or what have you from open carrying in my business?
I would recommend you always talk with your legal counsel, but as a general rule in Texas, if you want to exclude someone from your business, you have a right to do that. The only thing you ever get in trouble for if you do it for some sort of biased reason, and that would be something I'd talk to my attorney about. But if you call the police and you tell us you want this person out of your business, we'll have that person leave your business. Again, if you did it for a biased reason, then you may be civilly liable for your decision. But yeah, you have that right.
And there's something wrong with this picture. I have nobody.
All those bad comments about me are coming back to bite you.
Yes, if I have open carry, does my firearm does it have to be registered?
There is no registration process in Texas. So the only registration process you ever go through that I know of in Texas is when you initially buy a firearm from a licensed dealer, There's the paperwork that the ATF requires you fill out. Right, Bill? That's it. Person-to-person transfers right now do not require encounter, and there is no registration per se process. The only registration I'm aware of is if you have short-barreled firearms. Something that the ATF is mentioned in, or someone mentioned the silencer. Those are things that have to be registered, but the handguns and those type of weapons do not.
That's a good question.
I was kind of wondering, with this new law, of course, there's going to be a lot of interested parties wanting to apply for the CHL and such. With regards to probable cause or being asked, hey, do you have your CHL? How is the probable cause established for that situation?
Well, you're talking about, you said concealed. Probable cause might be established, and some departments can interpret probable cause or reasonable suspicion at minimum for someone actually opening and carrying without personal knowledge that they have a license to carry that weapon openly. That's what some departments are being told.
But hear this, we are not. So to repeat what you said, we have a higher threshold from when we're going to contact you.
We are going to look at the totality of the circumstances. That's what we're going to look at. But if you look at it's good, case law's got to set it out, because they didn't address this in the 4602, which is UCW, the unlawful carry of a weapon statute. So there's some problems here. I mean, it's still, if you go to some of the websites, I'm not trying to endorse any website, but there's some out there, Legal Shield type sites. They'll tell you there's some problems with the law, and that's one where we might want to err on the side of caution. And if it's a brief detention, it's just simply to determine whether or not you have a license, and there are some stuff that we're investigating, we may ask you for your license. But I don't think it's going to be where we're just merely asking for your license for that reason.
So in further to that, maybe we've received multiple 911 calls. Maybe we received one 911 call, and it's a known caller versus anonymous. Those types of issues will help us build a totality of circumstances to decide, well, should we even contact this person or not? In other words, if we're just driving around minding our own business and we happen to see you walking in the park and you have an openly carried firearm, you're probably going to walk in the park unimpeded. There we go.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to get at. Make sense?
Yeah.
Good question. Yes. Yeah.
Again, totality of circumstances is what we're looking for.
In regards to having your firearm in your vehicle concealed, if you are pulled over for a traffic violation or part of an accident, what is the best way? Do you declare that openly if you're pulled over, or should you?
That's a personal decision. Over the years, I've stopped people and they tell me they have firearms. And I usually say, if you won't shoot me, I won't shoot you, and we're done with the conversation.
If you are asked by the police officer,
I would tell them.
Do you declare?
I would tell them, but usually, we don't ask that question a whole lot, especially since it's lawful to carry a concealed weapon. The only problems I've ever had on traffic stops is I've stopped someone and there's a full-size 45 laying next to me and say, hey, I've got my weapon right here. And I'm like, well, you don't quite understand the part about concealed. And we could have a problem there. So, but no, if I was to follow up on that question, if I'm going to have to open a compartment, like a glove box or a center console or something, that weapon's right there where I'm reaching, absolutely, I'd probably tell them. I'd say, hey, officer, I'm about to reach into the vehicle and grab something, there's a firearm next to it, and let them dictate how you do that. I'll tell you, if I'm stopped for traffic, and Chief, I never get stopped for traffic violations, Chief, let you know that. But if I were to be stopped, hypothetically, I turn on my dome light if it's nighttime, and I put my hands on the steering wheel. It's just common courtesy. You know you're not a bad guy. The officer doesn't have that luxury of knowing who the bad guy is. And 90-some-odd% of the people we deal with are all good people. The problem is we deal with the 10% or 5% that are the bad people all the time, so we have to be very cautious sometimes because we don't know who we're dealing with. You know you're not going to hurt us, but we sometimes don't.
And Mike, Councilman Savage put a bug in my ear, so I'm going to ask our resident expert, David, comment about the CHL holder who is carrying, who is stopped.
The rules under DPS right now are still you have to display both your driver's license or ID and your CHL if you're carrying your weapon. But we always tell people, even if you're not, law enforcement's going to find out when they run your driver's license, so you might as well tell them up front, you're not giving up any right to do that.
I stopped a car the other day. The lady handed me a driver's license or CHL. I said, thank you, handed it right back to her. Didn't ask her about the weapon, didn't say a word about it. We're done. I finished my traffic stop, told her what she did wrong, sent her on her way.
Good questions, excellent question.
I'm not a gun owner, but I was curious, are there certain restrictions as far as ammunition or extended clips, stuff like that?
Texas does not have high-capacity magazine restrictions, so theoretically you can carry a 100-round magazine if you You know, the problem with hunting around magazines, to be honest with you, is they're not very reliable, most of them. That's really the honest truth about hunting around magazines. And they're really heavy. I mean, that's the other thing. And they're expensive, too. But there is no restriction. What was the second question, Chief? The high capacity and something else.
Extended magazines. Extended magazines, like long clips.
That's what I'm talking about. High capacity is not restricted in Texas.
This is an offshoot of the lady talking about the people having ID cards on the belt. I've heard of some people getting badges that say, handgun license holder. And I'm a retired officer, and I've been teaching this handgun stuff for a very long time. I know that it's not illegal to do that, but I would highly, discourage that. Perhaps I could have your opinion on it. And thank you guys for doing this.
So we're going to issue an opinion, go to the Chief to it.
We're not in the official position of making official opinions. How official is that?
Okay.
In fact, it's a good question. We're going to stick with the law as it relates to opinions. We're going to try to avoid them.
Can I give a general opinion, though?
Yes, good.
The general opinion is just because you can do something, sometimes it's not what you need to do. That's a general opinion. It had nothing to do with just CHLs or anything. So.
Very good.
If you're carrying a badge on your belt, somebody's going to think you're a cop and expect you to do something.
Yeah, take a report.
That's always fun, by the way.
Take a report.
I've tried a lot of handguns, and a lot of them don't work with me, but I prefer my blowback Makarov. And they don't make the holsters to lock the key holder out of the hammer or whatever. And if I do an honest attempt at keeping it holstered with whatever I've got, I'm hoping it'll be all right. It'll be awful heavy.
Right.
But that's the only one I'm proficient with.
What kind of shoes do you have?
Here's the reality. There's a lot of leather makers out there that can make you a holster, handmade holster. Now, to be honest, it'd be expensive, but you can get a handmade holster and they can put at least a thumb snap on it or some sort of other snapping device that wouldn't be just friction holding the gun in. So that'd be a consideration. They'll make you a homemade holster.
Let me add to that. Many handgun license holders in here, it's absolutely incumbent on you to make sure that firearm remains safe on your person all times. We all depend on your decision making related to that firearm. All joking aside, it's very important. All right, Alan?
If I don't have a gun, but I go threaten somebody with a gun, what's my rights to ask persons about if they are legal or not?
Great question.
Repeat the question for me, Chief.
He doesn't personally have a gun, but he sees somebody, let's say at a store, and he feels threatened by that person with a firearm. Can he, as a citizen, demand to see their ID?
No. I'll answer that question, no.
Don't be so blunt about it.
Here's the issue. One of the hotly debated issues throughout the state is going to be this gray area of asking people for their ID. It's going to be there. Let's be honest. Let's be candid about it. And so if there's debate about whether or not a police officer can do it, I promise you there'll be a lot of debate about if your neighbor can do it.
Yeah. Very good. Lynn?
Okay, my question is in regards to the licensed carrier carrying openly in your vehicle. So it's going to be okay, like if it's uncomfortable for you to carry it on your person in your vehicle and you have maybe like a holster mounted to your console or your dashboard and it's in that, but it's visible.
Right.
And your license doesn't be open carrying your vehicle.
The handgun license January 1st says if you carry your gun openly, it has to be in a holster. It did not clarify whether it has to be on your person. So my interpretation, our belief, and we're not lawyers, is, and this is how we're going to tell our officers, if it's in a holster and it's in your vehicle, even if it's sitting next to your leg, it's in a holster.
But in fairness, the Sheriff's Office may perceive it differently. The Department of Public Safety may perceive it differently. And it's not going to work very well if you say, well, APD said I don't have to go to jail.
And here's the reality on some of these gray areas. If someone will volunteer to get arrested somewhere and take it to court and spend the time to take it to either the circuit court, the 5th Circuit Court, or the Supreme Court, we'll have answers. And that promise will probably take more than hopefully the 2 years legislation that will fix some of these loopholes or some of these gray areas.
Okay, we're gonna end with these 4 questions right here, and then we'll wrap it up. Yes, sir.
I have a double question. I'm a card holder, but I came from Washington State. I was told that it's recognized here. Whenever I go to review, how do I renew my license?
Well, my first question is, are you planning on being a resident of Texas?
I am a resident. I was And I moved back home after I was retired out.
Right, so you have now relocated to Texas. David probably asked a question about
It's
license.
supposed to, just like a driver's license, my understanding, you need to register within 30 days once you become a resident.
Right. So
I
you
may
need
be
to-
off on my time period. but
Yeah, it's 30 days for driver's license. I suspect it's the same for a handgun license. And I think it's just a matter of some paperwork and a fee, I think is all it is. I don't know that you have to go through the whole class again. It's just, you have to get your license. It's just like if you moved here for a driver's license, you'd have to change your driver's license here. If you move, that's what's required by state law.
If you have a Texas driver's license, you already have a Texas driver's license, then you'll need to Texas CHA.
Right.
Very good, good question, Lynn.
We have a guy over here that says if you're a retired military, it's free to get your CHL changed.
There you go. Good to know.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, gentlemen. My name is Henry Hahn. I really appreciate y'all doing this for us, for the community. This one's more directed towards the ACU police chief. We have this wonderful walking path all around ACU, and I like to go walking around here. I live just a couple blocks from here. I'm a concealed carry holder myself. I do not carry currently because I'm still kind of vague on the what the definition of the premise is as far as a private university goes, but I would like to, if I can. So if you could shine some light on that for me, please.
Are you referring to open carry or concealed?
Either one.
Okay. ACU has not made a decision under the new law yet as to whether they're going to allow CHL carry, concealed carry on their campus property. Where it gets complicated is that the Lunsford Trail, for example, there are portions of the Lunsford Trail, the vast majority are on ACU property. However, there are small segments of the Lunsford Trail that extend into the city right-of-way. So really get complicated there and very specific as to where it's located. Generally speaking, if you're walking or using the Lunsford Trail, we're going to consider that on campus. So until we make a decision about whether we're going to allow campus carry or not, right now we're going to, and depending on what our decision is that we announce in January, it may or may not be illegal. Clear as mud?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sorry.
The answer is maybe.
Yes, sir.
Can you talk about printing or accidental exposure in a 30-07 zone?
Now, 30.7 is an open carry zone, so it's okay. 30.6. Well, if it's a, I don't know that we've ever arrested anybody because they printed or they had a little piece of their gun showing, even under 30.6 law. I mean, we're reasonable about it. I think we're reasonable about our decisions. If it's 30.7 takes care of the 30.6. Now, the problem would be if you have a campus, a college campus, that's concealed, you may still have the same restrictions about exposing that gun in a concealed-only environment, or you're in a place that's 30.7. I think some good judgment and reasonableness comes in there. I mean, if you're got your shirt pulled up and you've got it open in a place that you can only carry concealed, you're probably in violation of the law. If it's just printing, or which, for those who may not know, that's where it's actually showing through your clothing. I think that's what you're saying. Or if it's just clearly openly carried, then there's a problem. If not, let's be reasonable about it.
All right, this is the last question, so it has to be brilliant.
No pressure.
It goes to the concealed carry in the vehicle. Can you clarify for me what constitutes concealed?
That it can't be seen. I mean, it's again, let's be reasonable about it. If a little bitty portion of it's showing, technically is it concealed all the way? No. But if you're trying to conceal it, you've got to conceal. I think that's the way I would interpret it if I were to stop somebody.
Does it have to be in a console
No.
or in
No. Concealed's covered. That's all it is. Concealed is you cannot see it.
Thank you.
David, you agree with that? You can't see it. That's what concealed means.
All right. Please join me in thanking Chief Perry. Mike and I would be hugely remiss if we didn't personally thank Teresa James. Teresa James is the city attorney in the city of San Angelo. And when we, as Texas Police Chiefs in Region 6, had the questions, we reached out to Teresa. She traveled here, actually to ACU, and she spent about 2 hours with us as Texas Police Chiefs walking through this very discourse, making sure we understood it. She's an attorney. She's done extensive research. She's helped Chief Perry a lot on this presentation. They have done a fantastic job of trying to educate you. I hope you found that this was worthwhile. So while we were in here, you were paying for Abilene officers out there to protect your vehicles. Because we suspect you left all kinds of goodies in those cars. But let's not do that anymore. Let's work together to have a safer 2016. That's both on the crime aspect and also on car crashes. Y'all come together in intersections about 3,400 times every year just to meet each other. Maybe we can have a few less. As we do so, it's again my honor. Councilman Williams, do you want to say anything on behalf of ACU or on the City Council? Yeah, here, go ahead. Start the clock.
I think we were remiss if we didn't give them a round of applause. Christian, welcome to our campus. My wife and Banger appreciate you sending your students to ACU. In regards to the City Council, Councilman Savage and Kreidler, we've had some conversation. We want you to know that there is not a gulf between your expectation and our expectation, and I think this presentation firmed that up. Amen?
All right, so let's be nice to each other in the parking lot as we all get home safely. We're dismissed. Thank you.